today I am going to be doing my top 5 favorite books of the year and my bottom 3 most disappointing books of the year. So I decided to split it into the top 5 and the bottom 3. I am going to link down below my blog post that's going to correspond with this video. It's going to have the whole top 5 and bottom 3 list. Like, I have a Goodreads account and I will give it like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. But on my actual blog, I'll give it like a 5.45 or something like that. And obviously the disclaimer, if the books that I talk about that I hated, you guys love, you shouldn't take that as insult. We have different opinions, and if you hate a book that I have in my top 5, again, we have different opinions. It's totally okay. I'd actually love to know why you would put a book that I have in a certain place on my ranking at a different place in your ranking. So tell me in the comments. My number 5 when it came to my top 5 books of the year actually was a tie. So I am going to give an honorable mention to the one that I ultimately decided not to put in the top 5. I went back and forth about which of the 2 books I liked more. They had the same rating and I just had to go with the book I liked more. So the honorable mention is actually going to be Until Friday Night by Abby Glines. I really enjoyed this book. It was a really good book. It just didn't do it for me as much as the book that ended up getting the 5th place. I do recommend this book though. I actually am going to read other books in the series. You're going to see that those are on my TBR for 2018. So yeah, this is the honorable mention this year. The 5th place in my top 5 list was Anna and the French Kiss, which is about a girl named Anna whose dad is like the Nicholas Sparks of this like universe, like dimension, whatever you want to call this world in the book, like this book world. And he gets a movie deal and is able to send Anna to the American Academy in France. I think I actually, if I remember correctly, I read this after just one day though, and I was like, how the hell am I reading a book about another character who doesn't want to spend time in Europe? But Anna got over that fast. And when she goes to American Academy, she leaves behind her best friend and a guy who might possibly maybe be her boyfriend. But as soon as she gets there, she meets a bunch of new people, including, I know I'm gonna butcher this name wrong, so I'm actually gonna put his name right here, but it's Antoine St. Clair. Everyone else in the book calls him St. Clair except for Anna, so I'm gonna call him St. Clair for the purpose of this video. I do not want to constantly be butchering his name, but she meets him, and even from the summary, you know that's who she's gonna fall in love with. And they become like best friends, and it's just like a really cute love story. One of my favorite things is the character of St. Clair. I felt was super well developed throughout the novel. He was someone that like the author showed the good and the bad sides of St. Clair, to the point that like he's not my type, like he's not the kind of person I would fall in love with, but I could see why a character would fall in love with him. Like, that's how well I felt this character was developed throughohout the novel. One thing though I did not like about Anna is I felt like she had that trope of, I don't understand why anyone would like me. I'm like, I don't understand. But I believe by the end of the novel she had 3 guys who were interested in her, at least at some point during the novel. Like 3 guys. Like, girl, you're pretty. I also feel like the side characters in this novel were super well defined. There was a couple who was in their friend group who kind of had this on again off again relationship, and that was kind of touched on upon throughout the book, and that was kind of cool to see. The other thing that kind of made this a lower rating for me was that there were so many love triangles in this novel. It was like Anna and her maybe boyfriend back home and St. Clair, and then Anna and St. Clair and his boyfriend, and Anna and one of her friends and St. Clair, and it was just like, really? There's that many people who are interested? Like, what? Like, that's not realistic. There's too many love triangles. But the writing was really well done. It definitely was one of those books that as soon as like the characters would get close, you'd kind of get that butterfly feeling. So I ended up giving this book at the end of the day a 3.85 out of 4, which is also the exact same rating that Until Friday Night's got. My 4th place book on my top 5 favorite books this year was Everything Everything by Nicola Youve, which is the book that eventually became a movie this year, which is really the reason I read this book. I really didn't have an interest in it until the movie came out, and then I was like, I want to read it for the movie, and then it ended up in my top 5. So yeah, there's that. But this follows the character of Madeline, who has skids, which basically means that she's allergic to everything and has to be a bubble boy. So she kind of became a bubble boy, so to speak, and then Ollie moves in next door, and they start a romance through emails and text messages and IMs and even like some handwritten notes that they put up in windows, and it's really, really cute. One of the things I actually read online is a lot of people felt like Madeline was a really selfish character, and I actually felt like she was so sheltered in life that she didn't get a chance to make her own decisions. So she ended up coming across as selfish because when she was finally given the chance to make her own decision, she thought more about herself than the people it was going to affect in life. So I actually liked Madeline as a character, and I liked Oliver as a character. One of the things that I did notice about the book is that I kind of figured out the plot twist very early on in the novel. Like, I think I figured it out probably about 100 pages in, and I even tweeted about it. And I'll see if I can find the Twitter thread, because I was like, tweeted about it, and then I was like, I can't be right, and then I was like, oh my god, I'm right. But there was something about the way the book was written that even though I had kind of figured out the plot twist and it wasn't a huge surprise, it still came across as kind of surprising to me, which I really, really appreciated about this book. The thing I actually liked most about the book is there were a lot of pages like this that had like notes written by the nurse with like little pictures, or like you could really see the text message conversations between Maddie and Ollie. Like there was emails, and then like she even had like book reviews, which was kind of cool, and they were all one-liners. Like this one is it says, "Life is Short," spoiler review by Madeline. "Lord of the Flies" by William Golding, spoiler alert, boys are savages. And like it was just, the style that this was written in was perfect. It was so beautifully written. I am obsessed. And I also loved the casting in this movie, just FYI. It was number 3 on my list. The one thing I didn't like is that the ending, it just kind of ended. And I had questions. I wanted to know what her life was like after the plot twist. I had more questions. I almost feel like this book could have like a 15-page like short story novella style sequel, and I would read it. Like if you guys know about one, let me know, because there's always a chance that like some authors will actually do that. They'll do like a blog post. So if you guys know anything about them, let me know. And at the end of the day, I gave that book a 4.2 out of 5. My top 3 books are actually in like the order that I read them in. So like 3 was the first book, 2 was the second book, and 1 was the third book I read. Not like throughout the year, but like they're in order, because after each of these books, I thought I had read my favorite book of the year. Like that's how much I loved the top 3 books. So the first one is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. This is about a girl who is named Emily, whose best friend Sloane disappears. She's not like kidnapped or anything. She just kind of like, her whole family just disappears the summer between Emily's junior and senior year of high school. And Emily gets a letter in the mail from Sloane giving her 13 tasks, which include kiss a stranger, go skinny dipping, steal something, break something, Penelope, ride a horse, 55 South Avenue, ask for Mona, the backless dress and somewhere to wear it, dance until dawn, share secrets in the dark, hug a Jamie, apple picking at dawn, and sleep under the stars. And Emily becomes convinced that if she completes this list, she'll find Sloane. And through the, like completing this list, she meets a bunch of other characters, which is really cool. So at first, I thought the character of Emily was really cliche. She was like the really quiet girl who had the loud and obnoxious and like, in your face, look, here I am, best friend. But like as the novel went on, it really showed like the downfall of having that. Like Emily realized like she needed to find her own voice and couldn't let Sloane talk to her. And it was done in a way that like it didn't feel like a cliche lesson. Like it felt like a genuine lesson. The other thing is like I felt that her and her love interests were shippable. Like I did like them and all of that, but there was actually a character that she meets and like he's not in a lot of the novel, but I actually feel like I shipped him with her a little bit more than I ended up shipping her with the actual romantic lead, which is kind of weird, I guess. My favorite thing though about this whole novel is that all of the side characters, from like the girl who she met who worked right near her the love interest, the guy who I think should have been the guy she ended up with, the love interest, best friend, even Sloane, all these characters were so well developed to the point that if I found out Morgan Matson had written a book about one of them, I probably would go out and read them. Like, it was such, like, these characters just felt so real. Like, I actually felt like I was Emily reading these books because these characters felt like people I knew. And I really, really loved that. At the end of the day, I did think, and when I finished this book last March, I was like, I don't think there's going to be a book I'm going to like more than this. Like, I really did like it. And I gave it a 4.35 stars out of 5. My second favorite book of the year was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, I think? This follows Lucy, who is the executive assistant to a co-CEO at a publishing house. And she has a rivalry with the other executive assistant of the other co-CEO. And, like, they play, like, staring games and, like, all of this weird, cute stuff. And there becomes a promotion at work that they are both qualified for. Like, they're the two most qualified candidates. And she begins to think that they're competing against it, and during that time they are thrown into a lot of situations where it's the two of them. And then it's just so well written. I almost gave away the ending of the book. I was like ready to just tell you about it. I felt like Lucy was a really lovable character. She was self-conscious and insecure, but in a very lovable, non-obnoxious way. I think often female leads who are like that can get kind of obnoxious if they're just so like, why does he think I'm pretty? I'm not pretty. Why does he think I'm pretty? Like, girl, you're pretty. Get over it. But, like, she didn't come across that way. And then he had so much going on in his life, but, like, he kind of had this, like, Christian Grey appeal to him, but he didn't have that, like, abusive, gross feeling that I got when I read the 50 Shades of Grey. I'm gonna go on a little tangent. When I read 50 Shades of Grey, 1, I hated it. Literally probably on one of my least favorite books ever list. 2, like, I didn't think of him as, like, abusive in the way that, like, she was in danger, but, like, manipulative, and, like, if my friend was dating him, like, if I was friends with Anna, I'd be like, girl, get yourself out of that. Like, no good. And I felt like he was a more lovable version of that kind of a character. Like, a more lovable, like, yeah, he's got some baggage, but he's much more lovable. I felt like the romance between Lucy and Joshua, which I don't think I ever said his name, but his name's Joshua, went at honestly a perfect pace. It went so well, so smoothly, like, amazing. I loved it. So good. 2 biggest complaints is, 1, the timeline of the novel felt very confusing, because sometimes it would be like the promotional pitch that they had to do was like the next day, but then like later on it would be like 3 weeks away or like 2 weeks away, and I got very confused with that. And then my other complaint is that, like, this whole novel was so well built up, but then it just felt like the ending fell flat. Like, it just ended to me, and like it didn't have that like overwhelming like ba-boom feeling I was looking for. It just felt more like, if that makes sense. I also wanted to just quickly shout out a YouTube channel, Gabby Reads. She's one of my favorite booktubers, and she was actually where I got this recommendation. She raved about this book in 2016, so that's the reason I read it this year, and it was so good. So thank you so much, Gabby, for that recommendation, even though you will never see this video most likely, because I feel like you're a much bigger YouTuber than I am. And at the end of the day, I gave this novel a 4.75 out of 5. I really thought that this would have the #1 place. But my #1 book is the 3rd book in a trilogy. I will be honest, I think if this wasn't the 3rd book in a trilogy, it would still be in the top 5, but it wouldn't be #1. But the way that it ended the trilogy is what made it #1 this year, and that is Always and Forever, Lara Jean by Jenny Han. This is my favorite trilogy ever. The To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy. I love this trilogy. The first book came out when I needed it most. My memory stick cut me off, but it was so hard to say goodbye to this book and these characters. This book picks up the last few weeks of Lara Jean's senior year, and it starts off with her getting a rejection from the college that her and Peter, her boyfriend, since the first book, had basically planned on going to. You know, they're a senior couple in high school, they're planning to go to the same school, all of that. and she didn't get into that university, and she's devastated, and now she has to come up with a plan B, and the plan B ultimately means that her and Peter won't be together, or won't be at the same college. And she spends the rest of the year trying to figure out where she's gonna go, what she's gonna do, all of that. She ultimately gets into a university that I'm pretty sure, because I think they're all based on real universities, and I'm pretty sure the university she gets into is better than the university that she was waitlisted at. So there's that. I didn't love Lara Jean as much in this book as I had in the other two. She just was a little bit more annoying in this book than she had been to me ever before. I still, like, I loved the book, but I didn't love her as much anymore. I actually ended up liking Peter more in this novel. Peter was always the character that I shipped her with through the other two novels, and through this book I wanted her with Peter. There was never a guy that I wanted her to be with other than him. Like, I know a lot of people wanted her with Josh in the first one. I always wanted her with Peter, but like Lara Jean was always my favorite out of the two, but this novel, Peter was my favorite out of the two. I even said in my book review that it got to the point though in this novel where Lara Jean almost didn't feel like she deserved Peter. Like, Peter almost felt like he was too good for Lara Jean at the end of this novel. Or like, not towards the end. At the end, I felt like they were perfect for each other again, but there was a period of time where it did feel like Peter deserved better than Lara Jean. Something else I really liked about this novel is that this novel, more than any of the other ones, I feel like explored Lara Jean's family. It had always been something that was mentioned in the novels, the Song Girls, because it's the three of them and their mom had died. This novel, more than the other ones, I think Lara Jean needed her mom's advice when it came to her love life, and in a way it paralleled her older sister's love life, which I believe, I never knew if the older sister was Margot or Margaret. I always called her Margot, but she got into university and left her ex-boyfriend Josh behind in the first one, and I feel like that was never the way Lara Jean wanted to go. She was never the character that's going to leave someone behind. I don't feel like her sister could have given the advice, and it was the first time I think they really explored, or the first time Jenny Han really explored how hard Lara Jean's life is without her mom. I think Margot was always able to play that maternal character for her, and in this one, for the first time, Margot couldn't do that for her. I will say though, I felt like it was the perfect ending to the trilogy. Again, I think that's why it got the #1 spot. I think it went up a few points in my mind because it was the perfect ending in a trilogy. It was like the kind of ending where like you wanted to know, like you wanted to read the last 50 pages, but at the same time you didn't want to read the last 50 pages because you knew it meant that you had to say goodbye to these characters. But I am super excited. I think right around the time I finished reading this book, Jenny Han did announce that she had a movie deal for All the Boys I Loved Before with Janelle Parrish from Pretty Little Liars actually playing Margot, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that was my favorite book I read this year in 2017. Always and Forever, Lara Jean, a 4.85. Or 4.85 out of 5. Those were my favorite books and my least favorite books I read in 2017. I am going to be doing a TBR for 2018. I actually was going to try to film it today, but it's getting like dark out and I don't think I'm going to have time. I'm really sorry that this video was super long. In the comments down below, let me know what your favorite book and your least favorite book of the year were, as well as let me know if you would move any of my books to a different place on a rating scale. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye, Worlders!